Josh is a assistant professor at Texas State University for graphic design, and a former professor here at TAM-UCC, and we miss him dearly at being here, but it's great to see some local faces. So Josh is gonna give us a little introduction and talk about his work here in the gallery, his installation, the interactive pieces. We'll take a little bit of a break for you to get a snack, grab a drink, and stuff like that, and then we'll meet back in the flower gallery, and we'll get to learn a little bit more about Phyllis.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole, for the introduction, and it's so nice to be here and see a very fun, good faces out there. Yeah, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Michelle told me that I could kind of make this a tour, a walking tour, so I think at some point we'll migrate around the gallery just to kind of talk about the different pieces, which kind of fits with the theme. So this exhibition is kind of a culmination of work that was inspired by Corpus Christi in South Texas. For those who don't know me, like I showed up here in 2020 through various circumstances, and I was really from Buffalo, New York, so for me it was like, this is the South, this is new, this is Corpus Christi, there's an ocean here, I don't, like, what's oil? Like, there was so many new things. I was kind of trying to understand the culture and like, kind of take it in. And in my own work, I like to, or I'm very conscious about kind of understanding the history of a place and the people that live there. And I was trained as a designer, and so in design, we're always trying to visually communicate. Typically, we get a client that gives us like an objective, and we're like, oh, we need to sell this thing. But when it's just me as a designer, I get to decide, like, I want to communicate this message, or these are the things I believe in, or want to make better, or can make some change, and so I try to tell those stories. And so when I got here, it was the pandemic, and there was not a lot going on, and so it was just me kind of digging through archives, walking around, meeting people, and trying to understand this place that was now my home. And so that's been a really exciting kind of journey, and I've really enjoyed it. So the very beginning of this exhibition and the title, Utopia Sounds Like a Good Idea, started with a journey into the library archives. I don't know if you've been there at the Retama, but there's a whole room full of interesting things about Corpus Christi. And one of the things that caught my attention was this map from 1967, 63, double check, for the proposal for a series of offshore islands that were to be attached to each other from a highway. And on the islands, or each island, which was conveniently named after the road they were connected to, so it was like a Doddridge Island and a airline island, and was this idea that there would be some like commercial development or of tourism or like a park and a beach. And so to me it was interesting that it was this like vision of like what Corpus Christi could be from some planners' perspective or some city council initiative, or I didn't have the full story, but it was interesting that someone's idea for the future here could look like that. And I just also like maps, so caught my attention. And so that's kind of been my research here, like figuring out how things have come to be, why they were, who's been involved, and also like we're all residents here. We can make it the way we want it to be as well. Yeah, so that was kind of my introduction or framework for the show, because each kind of area I kind of imagined as maybe one of those islands, so that as you walked through this plan that didn't quite be, you could also see kind of alternate versions or explorations into the history and the present of Corpus Christi and then the greater South Texas. And so the first series here of images are all kind of photo collages captured mostly on the road to West Texas, kind of exploring the ways in which originally I was very interested in the landscape, of course, like Texas is known for its big skies and wide open spaces. And even in the beach, right, it's just kind of like this vastness that's there, and there's these interesting lines that are always drawn to the horizon. And so I started compiling these kind of landscapes made from real places, and soon they became places that were not quite real, and so kind of imagining what they could be or couldn't be. Yeah. at the end of counting the data for the days and weeks and months, they would actually throw in parades. So like they call them stock ticker parades because they're literally just like throwing the money recording paper in the air. So I wanted this to be kind of a parade. So the audio is like a celebration of the boats coming in at the same time, kind of like questioning like who's celebrating, you know? Yeah, and so I'm actually glad that it was meant to be big, so I'm glad that I have a big wall here. Anyway, this will drive you a little bit crazy if you're here too long, but it's fun for now. And then, yeah, we'll apply to the last piece. Okay. And so kind of one of the other observations I made in South Texas, or just in Texas in general, you might recognize some of these symbols, or at least like iconography of historical markers. Every state has historical markers. Every state has different ways of like canonizing what is like historically important. In Texas, there's over 17,000 of these, which is more than any other state. The process to get one put up requires approval by a committee, an unelected committee, and about $4,000 per marker. So as long as you fill out the application, have the money, you get a marker for whatever you want it to be. Yeah, so there's a lot. The ones that intrigued me the most were the Confederate markers, because I think the first, like, I'd be enjoying a beer at that bar over there. Executive. That's it, Executive. And there's just like there's a little marker back there. It's like, remember that Confederate newspaper back in the day? And you're just like, oh, it's like kind of hiding behind a bush. And like, yeah, like they didn't, there's not necessarily landscaping around it. It's just like there and nobody can touch it. And so I just started like checking out my environment. Like where are these things hanging out? What are the stories they're telling? You know, who paid for them? That's always usually a good question. Sometimes they'll say at the bottom. And so I just started making copies. I was just like, how do I can't, they're so separated that I often couldn't, they felt like subliminal messaging. Like I couldn't like piece it together when they're so far apart. Or if you drive down I-81, there's like, I think we did that drive, and there was just like 30 little signs that said historical marker in 1 mile, like, and that's just like a 1 hour stretch of a road. And so I started making copies as an idea of like, if I can put them together, then I can like think about them and like respond to them in some way. So those are the copies of some of the ones I've made. At the same time, or when I was making this, there was a lot of talk about how, like 2020, there was a lot of talk about like removing old monuments to like Confederate leaders or whatever, and like that conversation kind of died down and was replaced with like what books can be in libraries, or what information can be in textbooks in schools. And so I feel like it's the same conversation in a different format. And the quote that just kept coming up in mind was George Orwell's, like, those who control the past control the present, and then the past and the future. And so I kind of decided to build like a monument to the monuments, using the phrase like control the past, control the future, control the past, control the present, and so it circles around, and then also kind of documenting the process of like capturing the markers as I kind of, it required some road trips, like driving out and about to find them. Again, very grateful to the Texas Historical Commission, because they've done a really great job of telling me the exact geolocation where everything is. And it's really searchable too. Yeah, I think the only time I stopped was at the Capitol building. They're fun. Yeah, so those are kind of the islands, the things I've been thinking about, the little trips, observations, questions, stories, histories, comments. Yeah. And I guess, does anyone, thank you, does anyone have any questions?
So awesome.
When are you coming back?
I don't know, we'll see.
Does anybody have any questions for Josh? It's
Yeah.
okay, you can ask him later.
Yeah. How did you get plugged into Corpus Christi? What was one of the first things that you did here to get connected to the art scene?
That's a great question.
Because I can remember.
No, unbelievable. My kind of guy. That's my kind of guy.
What I did know was, yeah, there was an open call for a queer art show. And I was into and started meeting people. Yeah.
That was a good show.
No, I did want to ask you, sorry, did you have anybody, any interaction with anybody in the public when you're putting the signs up or anything?
I don't think so. I definitely like waited. I just like put them up and like it was nice to document them. I have more photos of people like walking by. Well, no, these signs are the city ones.
The city ones, yeah.
Oh, the water ones. No, I don't think. No, I put them up and like no one paid attention to them, I guess. Which maybe that says something too. Yeah, I wish.
Sometimes the organized abandonment works in our favor.
Right.
We're not really paying attention.
Right.
Yeah.
So much of your work is interactive. What's been the reactions you've seen or people have told you with your interact? You know I love the North
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, I think like why they're interactive is because I do want people to think, or like I feel like the idea of doing something is a good way to get people thinking about things. You know, as a teacher, like I'm always like I want students like do the thing so that they think about things. I don't know. I feel like the reactions have been mostly positive, but I do think it's because there's like a large group of people here that like care and they're creative and they like see the vision and they want things to be better. Yeah, I can't say it had anything bad. I think when my first introduction to really the art scene or like putting something out here was the Northside Bingo, and I just remember a lot of people being like, "Oh, I like forgot about this." It's a long time.
Wow.
So
Wow.
for me, that was just like, oh, like maybe that was the purpose of like people thought about it again.
Okay, I'd be remiss if I didn't plug. So like I, as a student of history myself, like 10 UCC alum, one of the most inspiring things about history for me was like this realization that I am also a historical actor. And actually, history is built step by step, which means we can have active interventions, and that's why I think art is so beautiful, because it is simultaneously a mirror for ourselves and how we're contributing to the world around us as it is, but also it acts as portals, right? Like it allows us to envision different futurities that wouldn't be possible if we weren't engaging with the present, right? And as like people who have agency. So all of that is to say that sometimes though, I think when we are thinking historically, we can get really trapped into looking at trends and patterns and behaviors to try to predict, right? And that's really unscientific. So what really helps ground me to not get lost in the cosmic gumbo of awful things is to be connected to the people who are like actively making changes right now. And so like Hillcrest is still a neighborhood. Like there are still people who are there who are fighting. They are still in active litigation against the federal government and the city of Corpus Christi. And so that's how I remain hopeful, is to join with folks who are doing those kinds of things. And if you are interested in being involved in those kinds of efforts for the environment, for our city, please come talk to me. I'm an organizer here, and I would love to meet anybody new who is interested in that. Thank you, Josh, for doing all of this. This is so amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
What are you going to do with the ballots?
That's a great question. Definitely, I'll post the results for sure. Yeah.
So you know what
Is there anything you came to Corpus with a background in art and design, and you sort of made work with those past experiences, and now you've gone to a new location? Is there anything that you're going to take from your time in Corpus, you think, that has influenced your art and design for your next projects or whatever
great question. I think, yeah, it's still something I'm figuring out. But I think here, I was gifted, or for whatever reason, the pandemic gifted me a lot of time to observe and not have to like make. And so it kind of like set me on this path where I just like learned a lot, and then I could like think and react and respond. And I feel like I'm in Austin now, and it's just like go, 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 and I need to figure out a way to like absorb what's going on. Find the community. I think like being here, meeting artists, meeting people that care, you like hear what's going on, and so you know like look for your part to play.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.